How would you like to make your first million? And today we have Tim Parker with us, and he's a world-renowned artist, mentor, and educator who has helped thousands of aspiring artists take control of their careers and build a successful living from their work. So, Tim, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend for artists to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
First of all, I think it comes down to as well, you need to have certain traits. You need to have a passion for art. And by passion, it's not enough just to love the thing. You have to have an overwhelming desire to master everything about it. And you also need to be willing to do the work that's required to do that. And you need to have courage. It is a very scary thing being an entrepreneur, and make no bones about it. If you want to make a living as an artist, by definition, you are an entrepreneur. And I think back, I spent 18 years in the Toronto Police Force, was involved in a lot of different situations. The scariest thing I've ever done in my life was quit my job, cash in my pension when I had 2 young kids at home, to leave and challenge myself and follow that dream of becoming an artist. So if you've got to have those 2 things to begin with, or else I don't think you will be able to do the things that are required. So if you have those things, it is absolutely possible not only to make a living as an artist, but to make a very good living and actually to become wealthy as an artist. But there's some things you need to do. And the very first thing is you need to choose and develop the proper mindset. And that is a growth mindset. And that is to get rid of the idea that what we think of as talent is some sort of magical gift that is anointed on people at birth. They're sprinkled with the fairy dust. I gave up on my dream and joined the police force when I was 21 because I believed I wasn't talented enough. And I was actually right if I just added the word yet on the end of that sentence, because talent is not something you have or don't have. Talent is simply the sum total of your skills, knowledge, creativity, and experience. And all of those things can be improved. And the great thing as an artist is we're not limited by our age or having to hit certain benchmarks. You can continue to improve those things through your entire life. And you can even start late in life and still achieve great things. So you have to have that right mindset to, again, believe that it's possible in the first place. And once you've done that, then again, the next step is you need to understand the art world. And you need to understand that the art world is not one unified art world. It's more like a bunch of different art villages, each one with their own set of rules, gatekeepers, and things that determine like who gets to be successful and who doesn't. And 2 of the most common ones, and what causes the most problem for artists, is they think they conflate the 2 together. So the one that we all know is the world of academia, publicly funded institutions. That's where postmodernism dominates. That's things like the meat dress, the banana duct tape to the wall. There, great art is decided by curators, art critics. Artists get paid through funding, through grants, things like that. But then there's a totally other village, and this is the village that I live in and work in, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And that is the village of commercial sales. And that is the village where real people buy an artist's work to take it home and hang on their walls, or buy prints of that artist's work to take it home and hang on their walls. And in this village, in the world of academia, what's most important is what the artist felt, what their intent was, what their concept was. In the world of commercial sales, the most important thing is how does the viewer respond to the work? What is the emotion that that work engenders in the viewer? And despite 60 or 70 years of the academic world trying to push postmodernism on us, what study after study has shown is that the majority of people appreciate the things that have been valued in art from the dawn of civilization up until the 1960s. Things like skill, mastery, beauty, and experience and creativity. And so if you want to succeed in that village, then the next step, number 3, is to master all of those skills. Things like drawing, master all of the concepts, things like composition, light and shadow, reflections, perspective, all of those kinds of things. You need to master all of those things that go into it. And then the most important thing, step 4, is going into process mode. And process mode is where it's like, okay, you're trying to find out, what do I have to say that is different than what anyone else can say? And do it with mastery and skill. And the ultimate goal here is to create great work with a unique voice, where as soon as someone looks at that work, they know who did it. But not only that, you're the only person who can do it. And in this village, we judge great work by the impact it has on the public. And when people in this village see great work, it stops them in their tracks, it takes their breath away, and it inspires that biblical emotion of coveting. They want to have it and take it home. And once you can achieve that, where you're creating great work with a unique voice, where you love the process, because you need to love it, because when you become successful, you're going to be asked to do it a lot. You need to love the finished work and be proud of it. And you need to have enough of the public love the finished work that they will be able, that the demand for your work becomes greater than that what you can produce. And that just causes your prices to go up and up. And then once you've achieved that, up until then, you have an art problem. And the one thing I've learned over my career is there's no amount of business solutions that can fix an art problem. But once you're at that stage where you're creating great work with a unique voice, now you have business opportunities in terms of really maximizing your brand, scaling your income, and getting into the business side of also scaling your time with things like limited edition prints and online courses and things like that. But those are basically the 5 steps that it takes to become a successful artist. And for anyone out there that has that passion, let me just guarantee you it is possible. But the first step, really the first step, is mindset and just believing that it's possible.
Well, specifically in this industry, right, you're talking about mindset, and something comes, which the main obstacle, which is ego, right? The artist, okay, they say, you know what, I'm a big deal and I'm gonna do whatever I want. And if the people like it, like it. If don't like it, don't like it, because I'm an artist.
Yep.
And I do whatever I want. And without knowing exactly thing what you just shared, that if you want to succeed as an artist, you have to do that transition and become an entrepreneur. Okay?
Yes.
And being
And
an
what you just,
entrepreneur, go ahead.
sorry, what you just described too is a wonderful hobby,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And if
You're
someone
an
just
artist. You're
if
do
someone
whatever you
just wants to
want.
do that, that is fine. I mean, I do that with golf. I've golfed for 50 years. I'm still a 20 handicapper, but I don't expect to make a living from it.
Exactly.
Right?
That's your hobby, right? And
Yeah.
then this is one, and in business in general, right? If you don't surrender that ego and try to get your product market fit, well, then you cannot, that would be your hobby, exactly like you said. You cannot make a living out of this. The second thing is that stereotypes, right? Everybody see,
Yep.
oh, you know what? I'm going to become this artist so famous that everybody would pay $1 million for a piece without knowing that this is the smallest market, because how many millionaires are there? Not too many. Well, they all come to this podcast, so you can find them here. But there are not that many around, and everybody's trying to sell products to them. So it's actually a saturated market where your chances looking at that as an entrepreneur are quite low, looking for a business perspective. Yeah, I'm not an artist, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing
Yep.
very basic analysis here as an entrepreneur, because I suppose you want to live out of your art, right?
Yep.
So whether this that you share with me today actually is very powerful, because how about the rest of the market? How about this? Okay, everybody's running to serve this 3-5% of the market that they will pay top dollar, and everybody's focusing on that. Well, there is a 97% left.
Yep.
Who's taking care of them? they have affordability. They cannot pay you millions, but they definitely
You can
can
make a lot of
afford.
money selling your paintings for
Well, how
several
many
thousand
people?
dollars at a
What is
piece,
the market
right?
size of the other
Yeah,
97% of the
yeah, yeah,
population? Is
yeah.
huge, right? So, but then it's that ego, Tim. So when, I mean, let's face it, we all have ego.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we won't be entrepreneur. We think that we can do better. Okay. So that ego is there. Okay. No matter what. So when you decided that, okay, um, I had to work on my ego. If I want to succeed as an entrepreneur, I had to surrender. You share with me that this always was your passion from 21, so 21 years. You all
From
you
12,
for 12. Look at this,
from
and
12.
you thought
Yeah,
that you were not good enough. Okay,
yeah.
and this probably happened. Maybe a teacher, maybe a kid, maybe someone make a joke,
It
and
was more
that
just that
yeah.
I was working and it wasn't happening. And I saw people around me who were more talented than me at that time. And I just assumed that that was a fixed thing, that I
Yeah,
just wasn't talented enough. And I didn't realize
yeah,
that my ultimate talent was really unlimited, right? But if you give
absolutely.
up, then it is limited.
Yeah, and you see that's why you talk about mindset, right? And this has happened. It's part of the process. Okay, maybe you won't be who you are today if you didn't went to this process back then, because now I can see you
Yes.
overconfident. Okay, which is in this industry is very rare to find an artist with so much confidence like you have, because they are always walking in a glass. My cousin is an artist, so I've been going to art galleries since I'm a kid. So I'm very close to this world because I've been dragged into art exhibitions since I'm a little kid, because I have an artist in my family. So, you need to go to exhibitions. You have to be there, and they have to set the painting. And every time you go to see your cousin, is preparing the new exhibitions, and he's always busy with this. So he loves what he does. Yeah. However, and he's luckily that made they living out of this. Okay. And I always telling this to people, okay, because my cousin is really good, but he's not the most talented painting. If he hears me saying this, he's gonna kill me. But this is my opinion.
Well, and I have a saying too, which
However,
is, yeah, okay.
however,
Yeah.
however, he sell the paintings more expensive than people that have more talent than him,
Yeah.
because he's great at PR, and he's great in being in the right place at the right moment at the right people. He's always working in the family. We're making a markup with him all the time. Oh, you spend your day in galas, all the time in galas, in party, wearing expensive clothes, and he's always telling us they are having party, I'm working. You think that I'm there in the party having fun, but this is my work. I go. This is part of my work. Well, because sometimes we're making fun of him. Look, you buying this expensive coat, and he say, well, my job requires that. So I love
Yeah, I
expensive
totally
coats.
disagree with that as an
Yeah.
approach.
Well. In that market, because you
Yeah.
said you say
Yeah.
artists lives in different houses, also
Different villages.
different villages. So the village that he's in is actually required that. Okay.
Yeah. But the
And
problem with that
is
village is
yes.
the problem with that village though is that then it depends on you being chosen by people who have the power of the influence. So who is the person? Because in that village, it is more about making connections and someone giving you opportunities, and then someone who's an influencer saying, "Oh yeah, this person is good," and that is a path, but the problem then is the power then goes into other people's hands. Now the question becomes, how do I get to be the person that someone chooses? And then it's, oh, I've got to buy the right suit. I've got to go to the right party. I've got to go to the right gala. And again, that's a path. That's not the path that I've taken, and it's not the path that I promote, because that path is very uncertain and you are not in charge of it. Other people are in charge. Other people make the decision whether you get invited to the gala, whether they make a connection with you and someone else in the gala. I really believe in the side of thing where the art speaks for itself, right? It's kind of like if you think about music, people buy Taylor Swift's music not because anybody tells them it's good. They buy it because they've heard it and they love it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the best kind of 100% bulletproof way to become a successful artist, is to create art where when people see it, they immediately go, I want to have it. They don't need someone to tell them, oh, you should buy this or buy that. And even just getting back to something else you said too, is really good. One of a saying that I love, I come up with, is that the village of starving artists is filled with really good. Because again, it's like music if you think about it. Like really good is good if you're sitting around a campfire. Really good is good if you're at a wedding. But if you want to play stadiums, you need to be great. And with art, what happens is there are millions and millions of artists out there who are really good. And when someone in this village of commercial sales is looking to buy a piece of art, say they've got $5,000, they'll go around and look at the artist's work that they like, that is really good, that's 5,000, that's in that price range. And if it's all just really good, and if they like all of the artists equally, then they're going to go for the one that's the best value, and that is the cheapest. And so then the only way to differentiate yourself from other artists at that level is to lower your prices. And then you get in a race to the bottom. That's why it's so important to work on creating a unique voice that is great, that gets that overwhelming response. Because now people don't have an option to go and buy something similar at a lesser price. Now you're the only game in town, right? If you want Bruce Springsteen to come and play your concert, there's only one Bruce Springsteen. If you want to just find a really great technical singer, you can go to The Voice or go on American Idol, and they're a dime a dozen. There's tons of them that are great technical singers. But you need that great voice with that great work with a unique voice. And if you can do that, now you have the ability to step out above and beyond all of the rest of the artists who are really good.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like we discussed, the artist, okay, has, in order to make this work, had to merge and become an entrepreneur, okay?
Yep, totally.
And have to get the product market fit, right? And exactly, there are so many different village like you described, right? And the point I was raising is this one, right? That with my cousin, because he's great at PR, and in that village, okay, the value of your work depends of the articles that they are posted in magazines and things like that about your work. This is how this village works,
Yep.
right?
That's not my village.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So then, and then it gets like that, and in order for do that, you have to, if you're not good at PR, which is have nothing to do with art, if you're not good at marketing and sales and being in the right moment, it's going to be very difficult. On the other hand, in your village, still we have the same thing. You have to merge the artist with an entrepreneur, right?
Yep.
How to feed the market and how to target larger volume and at a more affordable price, to which I think that is
not affordable anymore.
well, so what? But in the what target team, for example, the market, or when you started, tell us about this, because that's the other thing. When all started, they are affordable until you reach again a center name or PR. Some people are writing about your work. Then this is what increased the value of the art. Yeah. So tell us about your journey.
So when I again, I quit. I gave up on the dream when I was 21. I joined the Toronto Police Force, and then in my 30s, a good friend of mine was murdered on the job, on the line of duty.
Wow.
And that really kind of struck me, because it was like I had the plan, which was I'll do 35 years on the police force, and then I'll have lots of time to get back to my art. And when my friend was killed, I realized, I'm an artist, but I'm not painting. And I realized if that was me, when everyone was talking about me, art wouldn't even be mentioned, because most people didn't even know that that was who I was. And so I just made the decision that the only time is now. And that's all that I have. So I made a decision to get back to my art and get serious about it. And that was at the same time when I really kind of first started hearing about this whole idea of the growth mindset, right? And realizing, oh, okay, well, maybe I wasn't talented enough then, but maybe I could become talented enough. And even then, I didn't totally believe it. But a little voice in the back of my head said, well, what if they're right? What if that is right? And so I made a deal with myself where I would live my life for a year as though I believed in the growth mindset. And and I happened to read a couple articles, and what I got out of it is what that means is identifying kind of the dominoes. What are the things that you are not good at that are required for you to be successful? And what are the ones that would have the biggest impact going forward if you were to master those right now? And so obviously drawing ability, I was pretty good at drawing, but I hadn't mastered it. Composition, I was absolutely horrible at. And then just trying a lot, tasting a lot of kind of ways of painting, different mediums and all that, see what I liked, gaining my experience, pushing the creativity. And a funny thing happened. Within a year, I was getting work in juried shows and I was winning awards. And then I had people starting wanting to buy my work.
Okay, let's
And
stop there. When this
yeah,
happened?
this was in around 1996, 97.
1996. Okay, so you started to paint, and then people like it, and you started to win awards. So then, about this, I'm not good enough, I'm not talented enough, other people are better than me. It's like kind of the imposter syndrome, right?
Yep.
Somehow you realize that it was not true.
Well, then I didn't
You
believe it, but I thought, let me
you
put it in practice and see if it works. And it was like, oh my God, it works, right? Master the skills, master the concepts, work on the things that you should
exactly.
improve instead of, and what a lot of artists do, it's like if they're not good at drawing, if they haven't, and it's a skill, it's not something you're talented or not talented at, it's a skill. So if you haven't mastered the skill of drawing, what a lot of
100%.
artists do is go, well, then I'll paint abstracts. I'll avoid anything that requires drawing, right? But then they get into the situation that they don't even understand that then composition is everything because all you have is shapes, colors, values, edges. If you don't understand composition, then painting abstracts is easy. Painting abstracts that take people's breath away is one of the most difficult things you can do.
Absolutely.
But anyways, by the end of that first year, I was kind of bought in. I thought, you know
Oh
what? I guess
wow.
this works. And then I just kept going. And then in
The more you
1990,
practice, the better you become.
the harder I work, the luckier I get, right?
Yes.
Like figure it out.
Same
So
story. Yeah.
by 1999, I'd reached a point where I'd been elected to a couple national art societies in Canada. I had work exhibited in international shows and won awards. I was getting a lot of commissions. I was doing portraits at this time. And my wife, who was a banker, well, I just finished having an open house where I think I did about 30,000 in sales, and I'd just been in a big show, and I had a bunch of commissions lined up to do. And my wife said, we need to talk. This is not about if you leave the police force to paint full time, but when. Which floored me because we'd had a similar conversation a couple years ago where she said, please don't ever come and ask me that because we got two young kids. You've got a great job. You've got a great pension. But anyways, when we had this conversation, she also said, this is not just about you being fulfilled. This is about what's best for the long-term economic interests of our family. And she said, I think there's a good
She's right.
chance that she was right. But here's the kicker. She said, I'm willing to take that risk as long as you commit to me right now. If it ever becomes obvious that this is not in our best interest, you'll put on a suit and get a job. And at that time, I was a fraud investigator in our commercial crime unit. I was investigating frauds over $2 million. I'd had the computer crime course from the RCMP College in Ottawa. So I had a valuable,
very well paid job. Yeah.
Yes, very well paid job and a very in demand skill set. This was in 1999, right?
Wow.
So I knew if this didn't work out, I could put on a suit, get a job in the private sector.
Good. Let's explore this. So we have a lot of listeners here that they are in the corporate job and they are listening to you and they will say, wow, I wish that I have his courage to quit my job and start my own business. However, on the other hand, The fact that you can fill your own calendar and you can sell your products and you can go on holiday anytime you want. It comes with a lot of work and effort
Yes.
at the beginning, especially the first 2 years, the first 4 years to get product market fit. How we start our podcast, and this part is hard. I've done
It's
it.
hard.
I've done it. Everybody that have a business and been in the other side of success knows what I'm talking about. First year, first 2 years, first 4 years. Yeah, after, yes, you can be on holiday forever if you want, but the first 4 years is that intense, and you need to do things that you like to do and things that you don't like to do, and
Yep.
especially artists. No, I won't say that, but we only like to do things that we like to do. And when you are a
Yep.
solo entrepreneur, you're starting, you have to do account. It doesn't matter if you're an artist, you don't have money to pay the accountant. So you have to try to do yourself a little the best that you can. And then you have to do your own marketing, you have to do your own sales, you have to do your own this, and you have to start to learn about the business. And it's difficult to get the product market fit. So what message do you have for well-paid people out there that listen, looking at you and say, well, I wish that I have his courage and start my own business and go for my dreams?
Okay, two things I would say. The first one is one of the worst sayings I think that people always quote is if you do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And they take that to mean, well,
That
if I
doesn't really
don't
work like that, right?
if I don't love to do it, I shouldn't have to do it, right? If it's not, and I like to flip that, which is that if you want to make a living doing what you love, you better be willing to work harder at that than anything you've ever done before in your life, because that's what it takes to be successful. And then the other thing I would say is, I'm a big believer in courage and taking risk, but taking smart risk. And playing the infinite game. Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, people think, well, I have to make it this year or next year or whatever. What you need to do is just keep initially making enough so you can get up tomorrow and keep playing the game. You don't want to make risks that take you totally out of the game. So for me, it was like, when I decided to get back serious with my art, after I had a little bit of success, my wife actually sat me down and said, don't you ever come to me and ask me if you can quit to do this, right? But the reason that changed is I'd proved it. Right? Like I had
Exactly.
proved it as a side hustle. So prove and test before you make a leap and walk away from that job.
100%.
You need to know, and two things. You need to know that you have the stomach for this.
Exactly.
Because what looks great as a hobby, not necessarily great if you got to get up and do it 8 or 10 hours a day and all of the other stuff like you talked
about. For your own
right?
experience, yeah?
Oh, totally. And then know too that it's going to take a while. It actually took me, so initially I left as a high realism portrait.
When you had your job, that's it. You have Monday to Friday, Saturday and Sunday, you need to worry about anything.
I paid.
Just paying your kid. When you had your job before, that's it. You have paid job Monday to Friday, but that's it. On Friday, when you leave this place, that's it. You have all your mind for your family, your thing. You don't need to worry about job. You need to worry about money. You're going to pay anyway. And guess what? If you make a mistake in your job, well, in yours is a little bit difficult because it's a lot of responsibility. But let's say, metaphorically, if you made a mistake in your job, well, you can say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and it's okay. When you're at your business, you make a mistake, you have to pay from your own pocket, right?
Yep. I haven't had a paid day off in 26 years or a paid vacation. It's paid by me, though. It's paid by my work, right? There's no days off.
Exactly.
It's like, every day.
Well, you go a month of holiday. Yeah, but you're paying for it.
You're paying for it. It's not like I don't get vacation pay. No, my son works for me full time. He gets vacation pay, and I got to pay him for that, but I don't get vacation pay.
So... And then I agree 100% something that you shared really powerful, which is, okay, if you want to make this leap in your life, a good idea was exactly to have this approach team that you have. You have your job, and maybe on the weekends you were doing this as a hobby. You start you still have your job because you have a family, you have kids, and you have responsibilities. And then, well, somehow the hobby, right, start to get some traction. People start to buying it. There is some interest. and then you can make the leap. This is how I built my business. When I built my first business in London, I used to be room service on the Hilton in Canary Wharf, and I built my property business actually in the lift on the Hilton. Every time that somebody ordered a burger, I'm wishing, okay, top floor, 27th floor, high, because I pressed the button and the lift. It was the only place that the manager don't see me. So I was making all the phone calls and doing all the bookings. So I actually built a business in the lift of the Hilton. And then one day I realized that I have 2 rooms empty, and it's like $1,200 if I rent these 2 rooms. And I was not renting because I didn't have time, because I had to go to a job, and then I have all those houses with all those rooms that I had to rent. And then one day I realized, hey, hold on a minute. If I quit this job, I have all this time to rent these 2 rooms. I actually needed 1 day. So basically 1 day of working in my business make the same money that the whole month working in the job. That day I decided, that's it. 18 years ago, I'm not an employee anymore, right? So
you'd already
was a
proven the
transaction.
concept, right?
Absolutely.
You'd already proven the concept.
I didn't even, it was more than prove it. I just didn't realize I just didn't realize because I didn't know. It was my first business. And second, you have always that fear. You have always this, we all have as an entrepreneur, I'm not good enough. What is it fail? I'm not thinking, oh my God, something go wrong with this business. I remember at the beginning, I was taking my salary in the Hilton and put it 100% in the business in day one. And I with zero money because I made a mistake in the business. I brought the wrong contractor and charged me a lot for a boiler, and I didn't know, so I had to pay on my salary. And then next month, my whole salary, so I make another mistake, and so I was making mistakes on my salary. The was disappearing, and from day one for a mistake. But little by little, after 2 years, the first 2 years that you say that is hard, right? That you start to learn about this mistake. You start to, and things eventually start to make sense. Now, the about the art, okay? Because I had this brilliant idea during COVID, okay? I was doing a speaking tour in Peru, okay? And COVID got there. We got locked down in Peru for 111 days, which is amazing thing for me because over there it was sunny, the weather was amazing. It was not London, and we were not required to be inside a house because it was like kind of a villa that had their own hospital. Bottom line, we can get out of the house, and I have a fantastic COVID. I had to say, like I'm on holiday in Peru, in Lima. Then we had this brilliant idea, let's take some painting lessons and let's learn how to paint. Oh my God, what a headache. It's a lot of work.
It's very hard.
Nothing about relaxing painting.
Oh,
it's
I'm so glad you said that.
A lot of work. I know it for the first because I took painting lessons and I see my cousin all the time, like you say, like requires a lot of work. Cousin, he said he's really expensive. But what people maybe doesn't know is that he works a lot and he paints a lot. He's always painting every time that I go to his house, Monday to Sunday. He's always doing so. Eventually, the more you practice, the better you become. He's so good because he has practice and witness of that a lot. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. These minorities and I painting this. Well, if you make a living out of this, it's a lot of work.
Yes, it is. Yep. I can always tell people who don't know much about art because they say to me,
I took lessons.
No,
I know. First, you need to take the thing. You don't have to make the cover. Then you have to do another again. Then you start to one level, another level. It's a big headache.
Because what they say is, oh, that must be so relaxing. And it's like, no, it is stressful. It is challenging. It is rewarding. It is many things, but it's not relaxing. It's if painting is relaxing, you're not trying nearly hard enough.
Oh, no. It's a therapy actually for the opposite. So, I mean, we have a little bit of fun with this, but oh my God, it was exhausting. It was a tiny thing. The thing was a lot of work. It's not like, oh, you draw and that's it. No. You have to do one and you have to mix the colors and then you do it again. And again, I start to understand, like my cousin, I was saying all the time, man, wait, this is not finished yet. Look finished to me. And he still is doing on time. I'm thinking, what is doing? It looks so team and an artist is a creative process. I'm doing this as a hobby. I took some lessons. I know what's going on, and we write books. I'm not an artist, but we write books. We do kind of creative process, and
Well, what you're
it's
doing here is
difficult.
creative.
Yeah, it's difficult. Oh, thank you so much. Whoa,
It
that's
is.
you made my day. Thank you so
Yes.
much. What a
Yeah.
compliment for an artist. Yeah. Then, Tim, when is the moment when you decide to let go? Because when I wrote my first book, or well, my girlfriend was writing for me, but anyway, you read the book and you always try to make it better and to make it better. And I realized there was a point that I was making it worse. And you
Yes.
fell in love sometime with the piece. And I think my cousin also that I'm thinking, you don't let it go. Why you still going in that thing? It takes a lot of time. So when, how do you know that, for example, this one that is behind you, or for the people
Yep.
listening in the car or in the gym, he has a landscape with the sun and it's amazing. And we work with depth, which is something, this type of painting I love for my properties. You can make the room bigger. That's another subject for another
Yeah.
conversation. But I was buying a lot of painting like that, a lot, hundreds of them, because it was making my rooms bigger. I was looking for painting
Yeah.
with depth. So my room look bigger, and then I can rent it easy in my property business. Uh, anyway, so when do you know that that's it? It's ready, done. I
Okay,
have to
that's
let
good.
it go.
I can give you an actual. Here's the other thing about that, though, and I know why you're asking this, because what's really true is the painting is usually finished and that it's best 20 minutes before the artist stops. That it gets to,
Oh
it's
wow!
getting better, and all of a sudden, not as
Mhm.
good as it looked 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago,
Same with the
whatever,
book.
right?
Same with the book.
Yes. And so here's the way I look at it, that for me, I'm working towards, I know basically where the painting is headed, but it's very kind of at this stage, the way I paint, very organic. I'm responding to what's going on there. And then at a certain point, when it's almost finished, I know it's almost finished, but it might not be finished, or it might be finished. So then I ask myself two questions. Is there anything that's just wrong that I know I need to fix, right? And sometimes that happens. It might be there's a problem with the perspective. There's a problem. For me, I paint the negative shapes around the branches, and I might have like a tree shape that comes up, and then I've painted a sky hole over it, and then the tree continues. And it's like, okay, that's just wrong. Or maybe
By
there's a
the way, the
problem
work
with
with
the
your shade you
reflections.
did in this one behind you is amazing. Very good
Oh,
work with the
thanks.
shades. Far, my
Thanks.
very difficult.
So that's the first thing. Is there anything just wrong? And then I look at it compositionally. Is there anything that bothers me, right? Is there something that's interrupting the unity of the painting? Maybe the balance. Maybe I've got too many competing areas of interest. I'm just
Did you
dissecting
ask your
it.
wife?
No, no, because she doesn't know any of this stuff, right? But I actually look at my work the same way as when I critique my students' work. And if I see something that I think that, well, that's a problem, or this would make it better, and when I can articulate why, then I'll do that. And then
It's
when I've
already
done that,
difficult to do it. It's already difficult to make it. Even more difficult for me to let it go. It's a very difficult process, right?
yeah. And then the very last thing I say, is there anything that I think might make it better, but I know 100% won't make it worse? Because sometimes we go, oh, I think this might make it better. But it's like, well, there's no jeopardy, then okay, maybe try it. But sometimes what you're trying might actually take it off into the ditch. And when I've answered all three of those questions and there's nothing left for me to do, it's like, okay, it's done. And the other thing that's really important too, it doesn't mean that every painting that I finish, I'm totally happy with it. Maybe two
But you have to
paintings
let it
a
go.
year,
But you have to let it
because
go.
yeah, because there's some things where it's like, I'm not 100% happy with how this area turned out, but I would have had to do it better at the initial time I was painting it.
But anyway,
I
it's not
can't
about
come
you.
in
It's not
now.
about you. It's about the client. It's about the customer. It's about
It's
the product. If they love it,
yeah,
yeah. Every time that we do events, same thing, right? We do events, and then everybody's so happy, a lot of reviews, and then Lily and I, we go back home, and after we are, having this conversation, well, we should do this better. We didn't do this better. We forgot to do this. So every time that we do a big event, which is something really challenging to do, right? I'm thinking, okay, but why we talking about this so much? They love it. They're happy.
yeah.
I mean, I get it that
Yep.
we make a lot of mistakes. I bet that was
Yep.
that we forgot this. I bet that I didn't introduce this person properly. I bet I do tons of mistakes in my events, like everybody, right? But they're happy.
And
They don't even
often
know.
mistakes make
Some
you
of
look
them
human.
no, and then so the only person that knows this mistake is us because we
Yes.
know how it should be.
Yeah.
They don't know anyway.
Yeah.
So it's no point, right? So it's no point also to beat yourself like, okay, I couldn't do this better and everything, because at the end of the day, it's a business.
Yeah.
And this is important, and I'm glad that you came here as an artist and an entrepreneur, right? So, will you define yourself as artist first and entrepreneur second, or entrepreneur first and artist second?
I'm actually more of an entrepreneur now, I guess, because now I have my online art academy, which is doing really well. I'm
And I
coming out
love,
with my book.
your answer.
It's like,
Okay,
and I think there,
if people
if
say,
you
"Well, I'm an artist first and entrepreneur second," okay, great,
then to get a job,
good hobby, exactly.
get a job,
Yeah, exactly.
like, but,
Yeah.
and there's only one reason to want to be a professional artist, I think. And that is that you have a limited amount of time here on earth. And you want to be able to spend as much time as possible in front of the easel, or you're sculpting, whatever it is, like creating whatever it is you create. There's only three ways to be able to do that. You can win the Powerball, you can marry someone who's very wealthy and very supportive, or you can figure out a way to actually make a living from doing the thing that you're doing.
Look,
And
this
that's
is
it.
if you really want your art to prevail and be there, you have to become an entrepreneur first and an artist second. Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, and I know that's very controversial what we're talking about,
That's
and
why there's so
the
many
art,
starving artists,
exactly. You're right.
right?
They're gonna listen this and they're gonna say, tell me you crazy. What? But this is how reality works. Okay. If you're really passionate about your art, if you really want uh to grow and to be there and to prevail, you have to master the business side of it.
Yep.
You have to understand that it's not what you want, it's what the client wants. You need to understand that it's not the villa that you want to be. You need to live in the villa that you better at with
Yeah.
the
And
resources. And I'm glad that you brought this concept of villas, because this world have a lot of different villas. You have
there's a lot of them in art.
exactly like you said, the abstract villa, right? So I go to a Tate Modern, and sometimes in London, sometimes you see paintings there, and you think, oh, this is very easy to do, a painting half red and half white, and well, it's defining this red, this type of red, this type of white, who made it, and so on, which is made this value in the contemporary, right? It's another window. And then you have the villa that people are doing NFTs and are virtual art. Who's gonna thought that we're gonna have virtual artists? And then we have those ones that like I said, this market that pay high ticket, what is more exactly what we're describing. You have to be out there, in the mixing up with the clients, and
Yep.
they hang around in these big parties, and you have to be there because you need to be where your clients are, otherwise you won't be an entrepreneur. And then you have this part. But Tim, I want to know, if you don't mind, to make a perspective for artists listening this podcast, for entrepreneurs who listen this podcast, that they want to actually take this serious and grow his business as an artist. Tell us about the price range. How was your growth?
Yeah.
Because I get it that, like you told me, Harry, well, I was affordable at the beginning, like every artist, because every single artist at the beginning is affordable, because otherwise,
Yeah.
this is how it works. And tell us, when do you do the leap? What happened that your work is getting high the ticket? I get that because a lot of artists. I have a lot of artists as well. I organize art exhibitions. I organized once for a painter friends of mine in the High Commissioner of South Africa. Can you
Yeah.
imagine this?
Yeah.
And we did that exhibition about Nelson Mandela, and we brought his painting in the High Commission, which is like opposite the Canadian, by the way. South
Yeah.
Africa in London is opposite to the Canadian. They're so big that you have a space to bring art and so on. So I actually organized this myself into a high profile level. And I know that that's okay, that my friends, right, they say, okay, Harry, but I want to sell painting more expensive. I sell in very little, and I tell them, look, this is unfortunately this is how it works. It's kind of like a PR side. This is how it works. You need to have a lot of the more PR right about your work. This is kind of an indicator that your work is going in value. This is so far. This is what I know. Okay, well, and then so you have to, I don't know, create some. I always tell them, look, I don't know. You go then if you have. So what advice? Okay,
Okay.
you tell
So
us how you do it. How you do it? Nobody
okay.
knows you, and
Okay.
you want
So
to make a living about this.
here's the thing. And there was definitely a turning point where everything turned. And
Yes.
that's why I say that. So again, once someone's mastered all the skills, right, and all the concepts and all that, and think of it like if you wanted be a rock musician, you need to learn to play the chords first, right? You can't just pick up a guitar and start making noise and expect to play stadiums. Although there is that kind of feeling in art. You can just pick up a brush and magically there's enough there that what you're creating is great. So I mean, I totally disagree with that. But once you've got the skills, again, spending that time in process mode where you're trying all kinds of different things. You're also taking influences, right? You're following influences and learning what you can from them. And then you're putting it together
And
in
decide
your
your
own
style,
way.
right? Your style, because
You're
I
trying to
guess
find your
your
style,
style.
right? And
Because I
the
bet that
important
all
thing
your paintings, people know that you did it, right?
now they do, but not back then. So,
Oh wow.
but while you're in process mode, the most important thing to understand is that a lot of the stuff is going to fail, right? Anytime you're trying to do something you don't know how to do and you've never done before, then there's a high percentage of failure. But what happens with a lot of artists, they try something new and it fails. Oh, and they're back to their comfort zone. And then they try something new and it fails. And then back to their comfort zone. Now, just the thought of trying something new, now we get fear of failure. Now the lizard brain jumps up. Now we're getting panic attacks. And so they
Ego
stay in their comfort zone for the rest of their life. And the thing is, when you're in that process mode, the key is the very thing you do is give the painting permission to fail. When you're trying something new is not to create a finished painting. The purpose is to learn. Now you have a lot of failures in that zone, but you also have breakthroughs. Like Michael Goggins said that no one ever had a breakthrough in their comfort zone, right? And so for me, I was in that when I decided I didn't want to do portraits because I was all now paintings that other people wanted me to paint. And it's like, that's not why I quit my job.
wow.
And so I knew that I wanted to move into the landscape. So for 2 years, I was kind of all over the map in this process mode. And people would walk into my booth. They would say, did you do all of these? And I said, yeah. They'd say, it looks like 20 different artists. And it's like, I know, I'm trying to find my voice. And this is part of it. Now, because I'd mastered the skills and I'd mastered composition, my work was still good. So I was still selling good, right? I was still doing okay. I was making about $25,000 a year for those few years, which when you consider a recent survey showed that 80% of artists make less than 10 grand a year and half of them make less than 5. So
You were doing
25
well.
grand was pretty good. But then while I was in this process mode, I did the very first piece that you would recognize now as my style. And when I finished it, I just went,
Click.
I think this might be one of the best paintings I've ever done. But not only that, I loved the process. I was in flow when I did it. So now the
It was
question is
flawless.
it's like, yeah. So now the question is, what's the public's reaction going to be? Because all of that
100%.
stuff I feel doesn't mean anything. So
Absolutely.
I
Now
did
your
a festival.
entrepreneur side of it shows up.
So I was at an art festival. So I had this one painting and like 25 other paintings of all different styles. That painting sold in the first 5 minutes of the show. And the couple that bought the painting, they said, well, do you mind if we leave it here? Because we just got here, because the show had just opened, and we'll come back and pick it up. And I could have sold that painting 30 times. Everybody went to that painting and went, oh my God. And then I think it sold Well, then they were so disappointed they would just leave. So I eventually took it down and wrapped it up because it's like nobody was looking at anything else that I did because they were all drawn to this
No,
painting.
you should leave it. So like this, you know how many people.
No, because I wanted to. I was a
Send the
struggling
other ones.
entrepreneur. I want to sell, man. Like I don't. I love it. Doesn't buy me a cup of coffee, right? They gotta.
Uh-huh.
So, but after the show, I went. I think there's something here, and I'd committed to putting two paintings into an auction for the Burlington Arts Center here in Toronto. So I did two
That's a
paintings in
great
this
idea. This is a
two
great
paintings like
idea.
this, and it was going into an auction, right? Where 50% went to the artist and 50% went to fund the art center. Those two sold for double what I was charging in galleries for my for work. And not only that, the next the one of
You are
the
in the
people on
press. You are
one of the
next
people
Monday.
on
You
the
are in the
board,
press
yep, one of the
because it's
people on the
charity.
board that was running it, she called me the next morning to say, I really wanted that one piece, but it got out of my price range. Would I be able to commission you to do something like that in the original price range? And I said, yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Well, then I had a friend of mine who owned a gallery in the town where I lived, and I was showing all of my different stuff there. He saw my new work and he said, you've got to get this in front of like a big audience. And there was a big show in Toronto. It's called the Toronto Indoor Art Expo. And up until that time, for me to do a show, I would, $300, maybe $500 on an art festival. This show was going to cost 5 grand. But I thought, I got to
I'm all
do it.
in.
I got to try it. And I also knew this is now almost into the 6th year since I left the police force. I was thinking, if something doesn't happen, we're going to be having a talk and I'm going to be putting a suit on and looking for a job.
No, but it wasn't
So,
an
but I
indication that
already
it was
had that.
traction.
And so,
Indication.
anyways, I did the Toronto Art Expo. I made my booth fee back in the first hour of the show. I did 5,000 in sales. By the time my wife got down to the show on the opening day, I was at 10,000. I did
You are in profit.
18,000 in sales by the end of the day. I did 28,000 in sales over that festival. That's more than I made the entire year before. And not only that, I had the business cards of 10 different art gallery owners who said, would you please
Wow.
consider showing with us? And
Wow.
so literally for the next 5 years, so within 5 years, I was making over $100,000 a year. And that was with just continuing to paint, but it was because my work was getting noticed and the demand was going up, we just kept raising prices, raising prices, raising
Exactly. And
prices.
the press got a reaction because every time
And there's a buzz. People
it's a
know,
buzz.
right?
Yeah.
And then we got into doing limited edition prints. And then I was represented in a bunch of galleries. Then I got into social media and then selling directly. So that was 2005. By 2009, I think I made over $100,000. And by 2012, probably that was the first year I made over $200,000 from my art. And then I'd made that every year. My best year ever, I made $280,000 from the sale of my art. And then you will
you know
but then I had an overwhelming feeling of responsibility that I know how I got here. I know so many other people. This would their one wish, because that was my one wish. And so then that's when I started. I started initially giving back just as a passion project on the side with my YouTube channel. So that diverted a lot of time and effort and money and putting out content to help other artists. And then in 2019, I had Graves' disease, almost died twice. And
Wow.
that's when you really think about, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I know you talk about that too. It's like once you made your first million, you're like, oh, now what? Right? It's like
Absolutely.
this was,
You
and
don't
so
even notice.
for me, it was like,
You want
know
it so
what?
bad that when you actually make it, you don't even notice.
And for me, it was like, you know what? What are we going to be going? And I realized, so here's the thing. Twice I was lying on the gurney with my wife with me, not sure if we were going to make it, if I was going to make it the next 10 or 15 minutes. And what I loved about that, everything's fine now. I'm healthy now. I got through it. But in that moment, I wasn't scared. I wasn't terrified. I didn't have any feelings of regret. I was just overcome with an overwhelming feeling of gratitude. It was kind of like, I don't know who or what's responsible for all of this, but if this is all I get, thank you. Thank you for giving me a life beyond my wildest dreams. And then while I was recovering over the course of that next year, I really started thinking I'd already mentored a young artist who's gone on to become like a superstar. So I knew that I could help artists. And I just, over the course of that year, just decided that, if I get healthy, it's not going to be enough to just crank out more paintings and make lots more money. I really want to change my mission to help another artists who share that same dream. So that's why in 2020 went all in. Created my online art academy, and now the major shift has
Oh,
been to
wow.
doing that. Yeah.
Wow, that's
And we've
fantastic.
got a successful business as well. We're going to hit this by the end of this year. We should hit 600,000 in sales of
Wow,
my
in
online
the Artist
courses.
Academy. Wow,
Yeah.
very good. The team,
Yeah.
congratulations. This is wow, I'm so proud of you
Thank you.
that you actually make your art prevail, and you are following the logic to do. Never if you to be an artist and do this for a living, you have to be an entrepreneur first and at this second, and that part that when you have that breakthrough, which when you decide your style, when you decide your brand, who you're gonna be, and this product market fit. Okay, so you were trying different paintings. It's the same with all business, right? With the tech
Yep.
businesses, you have to iterate, and it until you produce something that it fit for the market, that they actually they're willing to pay for it, and there are a large demand for it. In particular, I'm seeing your work, and we buy for all my houses because the place that when my business, I was always looking for paintings that have this type of light escape and depth because it was making my room bigger. I can write it easy. So sometimes and with about a lot of rooms, 177 in mine, and more than one have two, no even single room have one painted. So sometimes two, three. So imagine we're talking about a lot of art. And I remember I was buying this style of artwork that you have behind for commercial purposes.
Yep. But because it makes you feel good, right? It's because of how it
Yeah,
makes you feel when you walk
the
in
room
the
was
room.
selling better. The room was
Yep.
selling very
For
easy,
sure.
and I was getting
Yeah.
more money for the room because when
Yeah.
people open, you see a piece of art that one make my room bigger, which is kind of a perception, but that piece also made this person more comfortable with that space to live in and to look at this piece every day. And I was making profit out of
Yep.
this, and nothing wrong with that, right?
No, that's
So
art. Art doesn't have to
it was.
criticize modern capital. Art can
Well, it was
just be
helping me. It
beautiful.
was helping me to charge more for my
Yep.
rooms and to make more money. so,
Yep.
nothing wrong with that. So, Tim, thank you so much. Any message, last you have for artists out there that are stuck, that are struggling, they want to move forward, but they have that ego, this mindset. At the end of the day, I'm an artist. I do whatever I want. I don't want nobody to tell me. Nobody's gonna influence my art. This is my style. I don't care if somebody buys, somebody don't buy. So if
If
someone
that's
is this struggling and is stuck, what message do you have for this? Because with plenty is a large part of that population, the artists, unfortunately, they are exactly in that situation. And for
okay,
years,
so
they are
I would
stuck.
say I would say a couple things there. That if that's how you feel about your art and you are not willing to consider what the public likes or wants, that is fine. But don't expect the public to support you in that journey because that's a hobby. If you want to make a living from your art, it is possible to create work. And this is why I say it's important with these three things happening where you love the process more than it. You don't
Mhm.
have to compromise. You can find a voice where you are in a situation where you go, I love painting this way more than anything else I've ever done
Mhm.
before in my
Mhm.
life,
Mhm.
where you are also proud of the work, where enough of the public loves it that you can make a living. I'm not recommending to anybody to compromise and go, well, paint things that you don't want to do for the money. I did that doing portraits and I had to walk
Mhm.
away from it because it was soul sucking. But
Mhm.
you don't have to compromise in the long run. But the thing is, finding that voice, that might take you 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. The biggest problem is most artists give up before they get there. And then they spend the rest of their life trying to market just really good work. They try and work where it's kind of, unless your work has that impact on people, where they just go, oh my God, I love it. You're now competing with the millions of other artists where the people go, oh, look at that. This is nice.
So it's random. Yeah.
Yep. So just the big thing is to keep pushing until you get to that place. And it is possible. You don't have to compromise your integrity. You don't have to compromise your internal
You just have to find the fit of what you like.
You have to find
what the people
thing.
like. You need to define your style. You need to define.
But you need to have all three of those things happening, and don't stop until you do.
Exactly. You have to keep going.
Yeah.
So, but also you have to keep going, and you don't give up, but also listen what Tim did. Okay, you have to. It's a combination of don't give up, but change your approach. Yeah, because how many times have you seen a fly try to go through a glass window? He will try. It's not giving up, but it will never go through. Unless that someone next door open the door and he fly away, it's never gonna happen. So the don't give up, it comes with the caveat. It comes, don't give up, but change your approach. You're doing so many different things. And then you realize that, okay, I have a piece that is flawless and people love it. Well, don't be stubborn. Yeah. Focus on that. That's what we all want, right?
Yeah.
And tight. That's the other thing. Consistency. Keep it tight. And I get it. It's difficult. I'm a creative. My panel is also creative, and one time in the office we were hiding a lot of creators, right? And guess what happened in the office? A lot of ideas, nobody was doing anything because the creators always creating. So the office full of ideas, nothing was getting done.
Execution is key.
She was telling me, okay, we need to hire doers, no more creative. Yeah. Creative, we have plenty. So you have to balance your team. And I get it that we love to create and we love to create different things and we're always creating. But when it comes to business, you have to keep it tight. What is selling and that line, because at the end of the day, it's business, it's not a hobby. So
and we navigate in the world as it is, not in the world as we wish it was.
Absolutely.
And for many artists,
if you want to,
they spend all their time lamenting about how the world is not the way they would like it to be, right? And it's like, well, the world is what it is. Yeah. So you need to swim in that pool.
Until you get to a position that you are. Now, if you want, you pay whatever you want. Who cares? You already made, you can pay, but when you are in that process, you have to keep it tight until you define your style. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Thank you so much, Tim. That's been fantastic. What a lesson! Lesson for artists. Thank you so much.
Now, can I give the?
I'm also learning.
For anyone who's interested, if they're interested in learning more from me, so I have my new book coming out. It's called "You Can Sell Your Art." It's very straightforward. It's a step-by-step guide to make a livable income. And actually, if they go to my website, they can get 5 chapters for free. It's so just 38 chapters, about 230 pages of kind of step-by-step what I think that I took, the path my students have taken. They can go to my website and get 5 free chapters there just by filling out the form. And I also have a number of online courses. And then I also have my mastermind. We call it the Hunger. You'll love this because one of my courses, which is just a bundle of courses that I think are the key courses if they just want to get that, and that's where the course is for like $199. It's called my Unstoppable Artist Bundle.
Wow!
And have my mastermind, which includes all my courses. But then I also get on every week, get on for a live Zoom call. And I critique members' work, I answer questions, and I do coaching. And you can access all that at www.timpackerartacademy.com.
Brilliant. So you guys, if you are an artist, right, or you have a friend, right, that is an artist and you see that is having a hard time out there, he needs a mentor that is also an artist, okay, because he will know the industry better, the insights, and in this type of industry, if somebody already have been there and have navigated challenges, that is something that that you can learn. And I think we have a lot of creative people, talented there, that unfortunately their job never go further and just there because of this technicality and framework that they need to understand and absorb. At the end of the day, you are in business. At the end of the day, this is a product. At the end of the day, you need to develop your brand. At the end of the day, you need to get product market fit. At the end of the day, you have to define your audience. What is the affordability of that audience? What are the size of that audience? And if that's gonna serve your lifestyle, because if you can be an artist, right, and you want to live a certain lifestyle, for example, you have to support your family, right? So you
Yep.
need a number. And if you love to paint something that the market size is too small and saturated, that you won't be able to meet that number. Okay, you will love what you do, but you won't be able to support your family. So all these things has to come together, right? Like any other business, and
Exactly.
and like any other business, and
It's no
this is
different.
reality.
Yeah.
The rest is fluff, is dreams,
Yep.
is things that you see out there, and you see, wow, he make amazing painting. Well, you can get lucky, like I said, you can get lucky, you can get win, one time and
It's
things
not
like
a good
that.
strategy, though.
Yeah, the odds are very. What are the chances? That you
Yeah.
win the lottery, right?
Yeah.
But here is the most sustainable path for all our artists. So thank you so much, Tim. And for all
You're
of you
welcome. It was
following
a
the
pleasure being here.
pleasure, and for all of you following the podcast, see you in our next episode of Unstoppable. How brave entrepreneurs like Tim break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.